Hello everyone, Theodore Burns here again. This is week 12 of Formula Sprint Lap Walkthrough. This is at Barcelona, historic layout, week 12, final week of the season. So this week, sorry getting this video out to you on Tuesday. I wanted to get a nice complete fast lap together for you guys, show you all the ins and outs. So this week I ran a 134.890. This week, you cannot go and look at the world records because the Open Setup Series has run at this track this season so far. So all of the records you'll see there will be far faster due to weather, open setup, and whatever. So far this week, the fastest times I've seen in the fixed setup series have been down in the mid to low 134s. I've seen that 134.4 in race trim. But so anywhere in the 134s will be extremely fast up there in that top 1%. If you can get down into the mid to low 135s, you'll probably be sitting pretty far forward on the grid in the race there. So without further ado, here is that lap from the official practice session earlier tonight. All right, and so there we have it. Let's start down turn 1. At the end of the long straightaway, I'm going to brake past the 100 board, looking at the exit for the safety vehicles, the bright orange paint here on the wall on the left side of the track, and I'm going to brake, right about at that orange paint. I'm going to be coming down all the way to 3rd gear and trying to maintain quite a bit of trail brake into the corner here as we turn kind of uphill. Try and manage the rear end from sliding out a little bit too far. I want to get the right side tires down onto the curb. I want to get them right close to the red and white curb. I want to avoid there's a big yellow sausage curb here, which looks just like a dark shadow on my screen. Avoid that green curb because it's a big bump and it will really upset the car as we head up the hill. So get it down as close to that as possible. And you'll notice once I get to that point, I start to ease back into the throttle, but not full throttle quite yet until I start to unwind my hands and get the wheel pretty much straight is when I'll get back to full throttle. If I get back a little bit too soon, I'll end up spinning the rear tires, spinning the car out. It's not a fun situation. But I'm going to keep full throttle as I continue up the remainder of the hill here. Again, getting the left side tires right up to the green curb, but not quite on it. Shift up to 4th gear, and now I get my approach for the long uphill right-hand corner. So I like to start about middle of the track here as my approach into the corner. And now this is a really tricky corner because there's no good reference points as to where to turn in. So my ideal line into this corner is to try and get the right side tires down to the curbing on the right side at some point in the corner. So to do that, if I turn in a little bit too early, I'm going to hit that curbing too soon, and I'm going to push really wide on exit and scrub a lot of speed as I climb up the hill. If I turn in a little bit too late, I'm never going to make it down onto the curbing. So it's extremely critical to get a good turn in. And in this particular lap, I just did it just a touch too soon because I went a little bit wider than I really wanted to at the top of the hill. But once the tires get up to temp, about lap 3, you can start to take this flat out without sliding out too far here. And you'll notice I keep feeding in the steering angle, getting those right side tires onto the curbing, end up shifting up into 5th gear here. Again, still maintaining that full throttle. So right here is the point where I start to slide out a little bit. Now on colder tires, beginning of the race, I usually like to give a little bit of a lift as I get down to the curbing there, maybe 80%, so I can keep a tighter trajectory off the corner here, and I'll end up saving a couple hundredths of a second up the hill there. So right here I end up going a little bit wide. You'll notice I start to unwind my hands pretty soon, even though I still have a lot of turning to do, and that's because you start to scrub the front tires here. You can kind of hear a little bit of a squeal going on if you have the some good headphones on, whatnot. So you really want to try and stop scrubbing those front tires and unwind those hands as soon as possible, and the car will keep that trajectory up the hill. Straighten those hands as soon as possible, and continue up flat out up onto the straight. So we'll play through this section one more time in real speed. All right, so coming up to start Sector 2, I found a couple sessions ago, I usually like to straddle this curb here up at the top of the hill. And it's more just for consistency's sake, so that I can continue driving the same line every single time rather than being on track. I just find it's a little bit more consistent, doesn't upset the car or anything. If you go a little bit too far to the left, bring the right side tires onto the white line, you may pick up a 1X, just a fair warning there. So my braking zone, point for this corner up here is looking at the bridge up here. So I usually like to brake about a car width prior to the bridge is when I like to get on the brakes. You can push it all the way up to the actual shadow, but I like to do it about a car width, maybe 2 in front of that, to keep just nice consistent turning into the corner. So I'll stay in 5th gear there usually. Even with a draft, I usually try and avoid 6th gear just for consistency's sake. And I'll end up coming down to 3rd gear here, and I'm trying to use as little steering input as possible as I turn into this corner, and try and manage quite a bit of trail brake to get the car turned in. You'll find that's a pretty consistent theme here around Circuit de Catalunya, is keeping a lot of trail brake and as minimal steering input as possible. Again, want to get the car down all the way onto the red and white curbing. Hit my apex, and once I get there I can start to ease into throttle very smoothly. I want to get back to throttle quickly because it's such a long corner and I want to pick up speed as I'm coming out, but if I just stab onto the throttle, I'm going to upset the rear tires because we're carrying a lot of lateral load already in the tires, and they can't take a quick transition to full power forward. So it's, again, a smooth application of throttle, and once I get that throttle in, I'm going to start unwinding my hands, otherwise I'm going to start to spin those rear tires on the way out. Now it's a pretty manageable amount of wheel spin on the rear end of the car, but you'll end up overheating those tires by the time you get to the end of even the 10-minute race there. So again, it's managing that with unwinding the hands as soon as possible and just easing into the throttle to get through that corner as easily as possible. So we'll play ahead here for the next section of Sector 2. And my brake point for this corner coming downhill is looking at this tower over here on the left-hand side. So once the car gets completely up past that is when I'm actually going to brake. I'm going to come all the way up to 5th gear into this little straight here, and I'm going to brake all the way down to 2nd. And I like to try and keep the car as straight as possible here, headed down the hill. Before turning in. So I found the easiest way to get all the way down to the apex onto the curbing on the left side here is to turn in as late as possible into this corner. And this kind of makes sense because of the trajectory of the hill, how it's not so much sloped in the direction the car is going right now, it's kind of at a slant here down the side. So if I turn in a little bit too soon, I've already started traveling down that hill, not only picking up speed, but also I've now made it that much harder on the front tires to try and make the turn there. And you'll notice that if you turn in too soon, you'll end up have a much higher chance of going too wide. If I slow down and then turn in once I get all the way into the corner, you'll find I've made almost a 90-degree turn, and I can drive straight down that hill and have a really nice trajectory, get down to the apex, everything that I want to do. So again, that's a late turn in here, carrying as much trail brake as possible down to second gear, and I want to get left side tires onto this curbing if possible. Try and get as close as possible and really wait for that car to get completely rotated before I can get back on throttle. So you see in this particular instance, I've gotten the car rotated extremely well to the point I actually get the left side tires up onto the green curbing so I can start to get on throttle a little bit sooner than I normally would. But you'll notice I don't get onto full throttle because the car is extremely unstable from going up onto the green curbing, but also just the fact that the car is traveling downhill this entire corner in general. So it's extremely easy onto the throttle here. Notice I'll wait till I get completely off of that curbing, and I've started to unwind my hands out of the corner before I actually hit that full throttle. And even then, I still have to manage a little bit of wheel spin, unwinding my hands and tracking out here as smoothly as possible to get out and continue down the straight here. So I'll play through that section one more time in real speed, those two corners. So continuing Sector 2, coming down to the bottom of the hill before the chicane headed up. My braking point for this corner is looking at the curbing here on the right side of the track. So usually like to try and brake around the beginning of the red and white or beginning of that curbing in general. And I'm going to be coming down to third gear I found is pretty consistent through here. And try and get the left side of the car as close to that green curbing as possible. I want a pretty late apex onto the hill here, and I find a later turn-in is beneficial here for the same reason as the last corner. This time we're headed uphill, so a late turn-in helps us turn in and we stop scrubbing speed, plowing up the hill. Get back into the throttle once I get the car turned in and onto the curbing there, but again, it's not full throttle just quite yet till I can get those hands unwound and stop the rear end from spinning, especially because if I have a little bit of wheel spin as I get the right side tires over onto the green curbing here on this side of the track, it's extremely easy to then lose control of the car and end up spinning coming up the hill here. I want to get the car back and make sure I avoid the yellow sausage curb there. And it's just very easy, drive out of that as smoothly as possible and continue heading up the hill. So I'll play through this chicane one more time in real speed for you. Top of the hill, right-hand corner. This corner, you can take it flat out. I usually like to give just a little breathe on the throttle early so that I can avoid going a little bit wide on exit and taking a 1X. It's just a little bit more consistent and ensures that I have a clean, minimal incident race. So notice I only come down about half throttle, at the least through here, and get right back on as soon as I get past the curbing there. Try and unwind the hands, keep the car on the track, and avoid coming too far onto the curbing here on the left-hand side. So you will pick up the 1X when the right side tires end up crossing onto or over this white line here on the track, and you'll pick up a slowdown if you get the entire car over onto the green there. So again, you can take this flat out, but I find it's just more consistent every single time to not pick up that 1X if you give that just little breath there. And I found it kills you at most, half a tenth down the straightaway with that little breath. And that's if you have an ideal, flat out corner through there. So one more time in real speed. Nice and smooth. Come up to Sector 3 now. Braking zone for Sector 3 is looking at this bridge here and the 50 board. I like to, for consistency, brake right at the bridge, but I can usually end up pushing it to about halfway to that 50-meter board. So you see right here I end up braking just slightly past that bridge. And we're coming all the way down to second gear for this corner. Doing as much of my braking as in a straight line as possible, and you'll find that if you start pushing that braking zone a little bit deeper, it's extremely easy to lose the rear end of the car car here, and you'll find I may end up have a little bit of check here as I try and carry that trail brake in to manage that rear end of the car. I like to try and get down tight onto this curbing and get the car rotated, start getting it rotated as early as possible so I can get right back on throttle and try and keep a nice tight trajectory out of the corner, because it is a very long sweeping corner. It's tight at first, but it really opens up on exit. So if I can get the car rotated right away and get back on throttle sooner, the more speed I can be gaining as I continue on through the corner versus with a wider radius coming out of it. Yep. So again, just real easy on throttle coming out of there, and I'll play through just the next corner up here before going back. Starting left side of the track. Approach for this, I like to drive past the cones here, completely rejoin onto the other track, and get all the way up until this curbing meets the track here. And that's when I'm going to start to tip in just a little bit with my steering angle, and start to brake and really manage that trail brake. So I'll find I come down to third gear. I usually end up coming down to second gear for this corner. I found if you can roll it in third gear, it's a little bit better. Trying to maintain that trail brake, get off, just keep the car rotated, and just again, we're carrying a lot of. It's a really long corner. We're carrying a lot of lateral grip. Don't want to get on throttle too soon. It'll end up driving us just a little bit wide. Spinning the rear tires is extremely easy here. And so my point of reference I usually like to try and wait for is the little sausage curbing that would appear right here. And I like to try and get not even touch the throttle until I get the front of the car right about at that point. Right here I get on it just a little bit soon. It's about a car width prior, and this actually ends up costing me about 2/10 from here to the end of the end of the lap, because I got on throttle just that little bit too soon. So it's extremely easy to do and get on that throttle, and you feel like you want to be extremely greedy and get back on throttle, but this is one of those instances where it's far better to wait to get on throttle, and you'll end up being faster on the way out. Now, why is that? Because you'll notice right here, once you play through this in real speed, you'll hear the tires, I start to spin the rear tires just that little bit, and it starts to scrub the front tires, and it's just pushing the car just a little bit wide. It's taking a wider trajectory and scrubbing speed off that I could be picking up if I had waited just that split second later to get the car out of here cleanly. So now as I can get back on full throttle once I can unwind my hands. Pretty consistent theme here at this track, and just mind the curbing here, drive up over it, but got to be careful not to dip the left side tires over into the gravel, and that's how we can continue then down the hill towards the last corner. So I'll play through these last two here one more time in real speed. So as we're coming downhill for the last couple of corners of Sector 3, I like to put the right side tires up over the curb there, just make it nice and easy down the hill. Extremely easy corner to make there, flat out, no problem. Coming up my approach for the last corner, I like to keep the left side tires on the red and white curb, but avoiding the sausage curb and avoiding the green. Keep it on here pretty late, and I'm going to give a little bit of a lift here on turn-in. I can't quite keep it flat out through here, especially without picking up a 1X. But I want to get the car turned down. I want to try and get the right side tires up as close to this curb as possible, just to kiss it. If you ride up a little bit on it, it can end up, tipping the car over a little bit and pushing you a little bit wider trajectory, a little bit larger radius coming out of the corner. So I like to just try and get close to it without actually touching that curbing. Right here, I'm a little bit wider because there's a little bit late of a turn-in, so I'll have to, just sacrifice that with a little bit more of a lift through here. Can't get back on throttle quite as soon as I would like, and that ends up hurting me down the straightaway, but get right back on throttle as soon as you can. and just mind it here. And this is one spot where it's luckily not too hard to pick up that that 1X. You have to get completely over right side tires completely off the track to pick up that 1X, and so it's fairly manageable to keep the car on track here with a nice exit to propel us down the straightaway. But right here we end up coming right across the line, and that would complete our lap at the 134.8. So play through this one more time in real speed, the end of Sector 3 coming down the hill. All right, and there we have it. So sorry for the longer video this week, but it is probably one of the longest laps we have here on the Formula Sprint schedule, all the way in week 12. And so I thank you guys for not only watching this video, but for watching with me the entire season. It's been a lot of fun racing you guys. So again, I will be traveling again this week down to Circuit of the Americas for work, so I will not be racing too much this week, especially after Wednesday. Hope I help you guys out this week. Gain a little bit here. Hope you get a little bit up to speed a little bit faster. Maybe get a couple tricks, couple things that help you here because it's a very tricky, extremely long circuit. So good luck this week. Good luck finishing out the end of the season, and yeah. Not quite sure what I'll be doing yet next season, if I will stick with the Formula Sprint or move to something else. But I guess let me know if you guys would like some more videos, or if you have another preferably Formula Car series, something like that you'd like some help with, or any video walkthroughs, and just drop me a message on iRacing, YouTube, Reddit, wherever you're finding the videos, and yeah, I'll be happy to try and help you guys out. So again, yeah, thanks for watching, and good luck as always.